At 76, I loved and cared for all my three children with all my heart, but one of them was stealing from me, and I couldn't really figure out who that person was. So, I proceeded to set up a hidden camera, and what that camera revealed about this thief nearly destroyed me. Here is how I took my revenge. Sometimes the people closest to us can cause the deepest wounds, and I learned this truth the hardest way possible. What I uncovered about one of my own children, my own flesh and blood, shattered everything I thought I knew about family, trust, and love. I was standing in my living room, staring at hidden camera footage that would change my life forever. My hands trembled as I watched one of my children, someone I'd spent a lifetime raising, act with a wickedness I could never have imagined. It was like they didn't even care. What they did, what they had been doing in the shadows, had been happening for months, and I had no idea. But for you to get the full story, let me rewind and show you how I got to this point of betrayal and heartbreak. Don't forget to like this video and tell me where you are watching from in the comment. My name is Franklin Harris, and I am 76 years old. I live in Spring Hill, Tennessee, where I spent 35 years delivering mail for the Postal Service. After my wife passed away 5 years ago, I thought I had found my rhythm in retirement. I had my small house, my routine, and my 3 grown children who I believed would be there for me. For months, something felt wrong with my finances. Money kept disappearing from my bank account in ways I could not explain. Small amounts at first, then larger sums that made my stomach turn. Cash withdrawals I never made appeared on my statements. Checks I never wrote were being cashed at banks I never visited. My first thought was identity theft. Some stranger had gotten hold of my information and was bleeding me dry. But then I started noticing things that pointed closer to home. The timing of the missing money always seemed to match when my son Marcus had been around. He had struggled with debt in the past, and lately he seemed distant and uncomfortable during our visits. All my 3 children lived with me. Marcus was my younger child, always the rebel who could not seem to find his footing. He bounced from one job to another, and his relationships never seemed to last. His older sister, Diane, took a different path. She became a nurse and seemed to have her life in order, especially after their mother passed away. She eventually became my primary caregiver. Then there's my oldest daughter, Sarah, who's 38 and works as a high school teacher. After her marriage fell apart, she moved back in with me. She's been going through a tough time. Her teenage son was caught with fentanyl at school, and the rehab center he needed wasn't covered by insurance. She burned through her savings trying to get him help and is now buried in debt. So, among the 3 of them, Diane appeared to be the one I could rely on most. Calm, dependable, and close by. When money started disappearing, Marcus seemed like the obvious suspect. He drifted from job to job and relationship to relationship, always seeming to need financial help. The evidence seemed to point directly at him. I confided in Diane privately, telling her about the missing money and how I suspected Marcus. Now, I did this because Diane is my favorite. She was everything a father could ask for in a daughter. She brings groceries and helps with household tasks. She organized my medications and drove me to doctor appointments when I needed help. After her mother died, Diane stepped into that caring role without being asked. She was the steady one, the dependable one, the child who never caused me worry. When I privately shared my suspicions about the missing money, Diane listened with concern and anger. She told me Marcus could not be trusted around my finances. She reminded me of his past money troubles and suggested I needed to protect myself. Her advice seemed reasonable and caring, just like everything else she did for me. The situation reached a breaking point during a family dinner at my house. I had decided to confront Marcus about the missing money, and Diane and Sarah supported my decision. They sat beside me as I accused Marcus of stealing from his elderly father. The hurt in Marcus's eyes cut through me, but I pushed forward with my accusations. Marcus denied everything with a passion that surprised me. He demanded to know specific details about the missing money and asked why I would suspect him without proof. His anger seemed genuine, and for a moment I wondered if I had made a mistake. But Diane squeezed my hand and reminded me that thieves always deny their crimes. That confrontation ended with Marcus storming out of my house. He told me he would not return until I came to my senses and apologized. Sarah comforted me afterward, saying I had done the right thing by protecting myself. She convinced me to change my locks and limit Marcus' access to my home. But something about that night bothered me. I had no concrete proof that it was Marcus, except for the fact that he lived a very irresponsible lifestyle. Marcus's reaction to my accusations felt too real, too hurt, too genuine for someone who was guilty. I needed to be sure that I was accusing the right person. So, I started paying closer attention to the timing of the missing money. I began keeping better track of my daily activities and who had access to my personal information. That closer attention led me to install a small hidden camera near my desk, where I kept my checkbook and important papers. What that camera captured would shatter every assumption I had made about my children and force me to face a truth more painful than any physical wound. But before I discovered what was really happening, I had to navigate through weeks of mounting evidence that seemed to confirm my worst fears about Marcus. Before I set up the hidden camera, there were a few important things that happened, and I need to share them with you so you can understand the full story. Two people unknowingly helped me piece together the real puzzle in identifying which of my children was stealing from me, though none of them realized how important their observations would become. The first was my neighbor Ernie, a retired detective who lived 2 houses down from me. Every Thursday evening, we played chess on my back porch, and our conversations often wandered into stories from our working days. During one of our chess games, I mentioned my concerns about the missing money and my suspicions about Marcus. Ernie listened carefully as he moved his knight across the board. Then he looked up at me with those sharp eyes that had solved countless cases during his career. He told me that in his experience, the guilty party was usually the person you least expected, not the obvious suspect. His words planted a seed of doubt in my mind, but I pushed it away. Marcus had the motive and the opportunity, and his defensive reaction when confronted seemed to confirm his guilt. Still, Ernie's observation lingered in the back of my thoughts, like a persistent itch I could not scratch. The second person who unknowingly helped was Marla, a young bank teller at my local branch. She had been working there for about 3 years and always greeted me by name when I came in for my monthly banking. Marla had a sharp memory for details and genuinely cared about her elderly customers. One afternoon when I stopped by to deposit a check, Marla pulled me aside with a concerned expression. She had noticed some unusual activity on my account that worried her. Cash withdrawals were being made from a branch location 2 towns away, always on days when I had been homesick with the flu or recovering from a minor medical procedure. Marla suggested I review my monthly statements more carefully and consider reporting the suspicious activity. Her observation made me realize that whoever was accessing my money knew my schedule well enough to act when I was unable to leave the house. This knowledge required intimate familiarity with my daily routine and health condition. Planning that Kamara came after weeks of cold silence between Marcus and I. He appeared at my front door one evening, visibly upset and demanding we talk. His hurt had transformed into righteous anger, and he wanted answers about why I had cut him out of my life without solid proof. Marcus confronted me about the accusations and demanded I show him the evidence against him. He wanted specific dates, amounts, and details about the missing money. His insistence on facts rather than emotional denials made me pause and really examine what I thought I knew. He challenged me to verify my suspicions before destroying our relationship over assumptions. That confrontation pushed me to take action I had been avoiding. That's when I decided to hide a small security camera inside my bookshelf, tucked behind some books. The bookshelf sat right next to my desk, which was connected to a drawer holding all my checkbooks and my financial documents. From that spot, the camera could clearly capture everything that happened on my desk. The camera was motion activated and would record anyone who approached that area of my bedroom. Setting up the camera felt like a betrayal of trust against my 2 daughters, but I needed concrete evidence one way or another. If Marcus was innocent, the camera would prove it by capturing the real thief and allow me to repair our damaged relationship. If he was guilty, the camera would have no one to capture, which would further confirm my suspicion of Marcus. Now, before I go on with this story, it's very important to say this. If you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. By liking, subscribing, and even leaving a short comment, you are helping me grow this channel so that other seniors like you can find this video and learn the graceful wisdom tips that it offers. I share real stories from elders who face tough situations just like this. These stories aren't just for entertainment, they're meant to help us learn and grow wiser. As seniors, we can sometimes become vulnerable, and that's why it's so important to learn from the experiences and mistakes of others. Together, we can protect ourselves and each other through shared wisdom. Now, back to our story. So, for 2 weeks, the camera recorded nothing unusual. At that point, everything seemed to confirm my suspicions. I became certain Marcus was the one stealing from me. But deep down, something didn't sit right. A part of me kept wondering if maybe I was wrong, because after I confronted him, the way he reacted felt real. His concern, his frustration, it didn't feel like an act. In fact, it made me start to feel guilty. Still, after 3 full weeks of checking the hidden camera and seeing nothing unusual, I convinced myself that Marcus had just gotten smarter. I told myself his recent kindness was just a way to worm his way back into my good graces, that cutting him off had been too heavy a burden for him to carry. So, I decided, Marcus had to be the guilty one. With Marcus out of the way, I started to hope that my financial troubles were behind me. But I still left the hidden camera running, just in case something unusual happened. Lo and behold, Sarah called me one evening, and her voice carried a stress I had not heard in years. She told me about serious problems with her teenage son who had been caught using drugs at school. The boy needed expensive treatment at a private rehab facility, and she had no insurance that would not cover the full cost. Sarah explained that she had already spent her savings trying to help her son through previous incidents. Now she is facing bills she could not afford, and she wondered if I might consider helping her financially. She mentioned knowing about my comfortable retirement savings and asked if I could loan her $5,000 to cover the treatment costs. No one knew about my retirement savings except Diane. So when Sarah, my oldest daughter, suddenly mentioned them, I was confused. I asked her how she found out, and she said she saw one of my bank receipts inside my wardrobe while doing chores around the house. She must have noticed the look on my face because she quickly tried to reassure me. She said she'd never touch my money and that I could always trust her. But the timing felt off. I had just cut Marcus off after suspecting him of draining my accounts. And now, out of nowhere, Sarah was asking me for a large sum of cash. She'd never asked me for money before, not once. That made her request feel even more unusual and unsettling. Was it possible that Marcus wasn't the one stealing from me after all? Could it be that he was innocent and my accusations, followed by our fallout, actually scared the real thief into stopping for a while because I was on high alert? Could it be that Sarah's request for help was actually an attempt to cover up money she had already taken from my accounts? The possibility that my oldest daughter might be involved in the theft added another layer of confusion to an already complicated situation. I told Sarah I needed some time to think about her request. At that point, the number of suspects on my mental list had grown to 2 of my children, Marcus and Sarah. My first instinct was to tell Diane, since she was the one I trusted the most. But something told me to pause and take a moment to process everything. I genuinely wanted to help Sarah, but I was already overwhelmed by my own financial issues. Money had been disappearing, and with Sarah on my suspicion list, I wasn't really sure who was behind it. Only one person came to mind to talk about it, my neighbor, Ernie. I was just about to step outside and head over to Ernie's house when Diane stopped me in the living room and offered to help organize my tax documents for the upcoming filing season. She had done this for me the previous year, and her nursing background made her naturally organized and detail-oriented. I was grateful for her help and gave her access to my desk area where all my important papers were stored. I went over to Ernie's place and told him about everything that had happened, especially how my oldest daughter somehow knew the exact amount I had in my retirement savings. Ernie reminded me of what he said from the start. The guilty one is usually the person you least suspect. Then he advised me to stay sharp, be observant, and not rush into any decisions just yet. The next morning, I checked the camera footage from the previous evening. What I saw in that camera footage broke my heart in ways I never thought possible. There was my daughter Diane, the child I had trusted with everything, sitting at my desk with my checkbook open in front of her. She held my pen in her hand and carefully practiced my signature on a piece of scrap paper before writing it on an actual check. I watched her work with the focused attention of someone who had done this many times before. She filled out the check for $1,800, made it payable to cash, and signed my name with practiced ease. Then she tore it from the book and slipped it into her purse like it was the most natural thing in the world. The woman who brought me soup when I was sick, who organized my medications, who held my hand during difficult moments after her mother died, was systematically stealing from me. Everything I thought I knew about my children had been turned upside down. Marcus, whom I had accused and pushed away, was innocent. Sarah, who needed help desperately for her teenage son, was also innocent. Diane, whom I had defended and trusted completely, was the real thief. I sat in my chair for close to an hour, watching that footage over and over again, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This was not a moment of desperation or a single mistake. The confidence in her movements told me she had been doing this for months, maybe longer. She had access to my home, my financial information, and my complete trust. The betrayal cut deeper because of how she had manipulated the situation. She had not only stolen from me, but had also destroyed my relationship with Marcus by encouraging my suspicions against him. She had played the role of the concerned, protective daughter while actively working to isolate me from my son and cover her own crimes. But the discovery was just the beginning of my pain. When I dug deeper into my financial records, I found evidence of something even worse. Diane had not only been forging checks and making unauthorized withdrawals, she had also taken out a payday loan using my personal information and social security number. The loan company had been calling my house, but Diane always answered and told them I was unavailable. That payday loan was the breaking point for me. Stealing money was one thing, but putting my financial security and credit rating at risk crossed a line I could not forgive. She had gambled with my future and my ability to maintain my independence as I aged. The betrayal felt complete and devastating. I made the hardest decision of my life. I called Ernie and asked for his advice on how to proceed legally. Together, we contacted the bank fraud department and filed a police report. Marla helped by providing documentation of the suspicious withdrawal patterns and confirming the timeline of events. Marcus, whom I had to call and beg for forgiveness, stood by my side throughout the entire process. The investigation moved quickly once the authorities had the camera footage and bank records. Diane was arrested and charged with elder fraud, identity theft, and forgery. When the police came to her house, she broke down and confessed to everything. She claimed she had been planning to pay me back, that her own financial problems had driven her to desperation. But her tears and explanations could not undo the months of calculated deception. She had not only stolen my money, but had manipulated my emotions and destroyed my trust in my own judgment. The daughter I had raised and loved had played me like a chess piece in her own game of survival. The legal process was swift, but emotionally exhausting. Diane was sentenced to restitution and community service, with the threat of jail time if she failed to repay what she had stolen. She lost her nursing license and had to find new work to meet her court obligations. Our relationship was permanently damaged, and she moved away from Spring Hill shortly after her sentencing. Marcus and I slowly rebuilt our connection, though the damage took time to heal completely. He forgave me for my accusations, but I could see the hurt in his eyes whenever we talked about that difficult period. Trust, once broken, requires patience and consistent effort to repair, even between family members who love each other. Looking back now, I realize I should have listened to the warning signs earlier. Ernie's advice about watching the unexpected person, Marla's observations about the timing of the thefts, and Marcus's genuine hurt when confronted should have made me question my assumptions. Instead, I let my emotions and preconceived notions cloud my judgment. The hardest lesson I learned was that love and trust are not the same thing. I will always love Diane because she is my daughter, but I can never again trust her with my financial security or emotional well-being. Sometimes protecting yourself means accepting painful truths about the people you care about most. To this day, I wonder if I made the right choice by turning her into the authorities. Part of me will always wish I could have found a way to help her without destroying our relationship. But I also know that allowing her behavior to continue would have enabled her to hurt other elderly people who trusted her. This story teaches us several important lessons about protecting ourselves as we age and maintaining healthy family relationships. Let's take a quick look at 4 valuable lessons in graceful wisdom that we, as seniors, can learn from this story. 1. Pay attention to unusual financial activity. Pay close attention to any unusual activity in your finances, no matter who might be responsible. Franklin ignored warning signs for months because he could not imagine his trusted daughter would betray him. Regular review of bank statements and credit reports can help catch problems before they become devastating. 2. Don't make assumptions based on past behavior or family roles. Franklin assumed Marcus was guilty because of previous money troubles, while he trusted Diane completely because she had always been responsible. People can change, and financial desperation can drive anyone to make choices they never thought possible. We must evaluate current evidence rather than relying on old patterns. 3. Have multiple trusted advisors outside the family. Ernie, Marla, and eventually Marcus all provided Franklin with different perspectives that helped him see the truth. Having friends, neighbors, and professional contacts who can offer objective opinions is crucial for making good decisions about serious matters. 4. Sometimes, protecting yourself means making hard choices about loved ones. Franklin had to choose between enabling his daughter's criminal behavior and holding her accountable for her actions. Love does not mean accepting abuse or allowing someone to destroy your financial security and peace of mind. What part of Franklin's story resonated most with you? Have you ever had to make difficult choices about trusting family members with important matters? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more content like this. Until next time, keep living with grace and purpose.